So, her name is Charlene Draper Potter. She's one of the most amazing people I know. So I'm going to bring her on and I'm going to unmute her mic because I know she wants to talk. Well, hello.
Hi,
Are you
Dusty.
are you comfy?
I'm comfy. Do I look
Awesome.
like it?
Yeah, you do. I wish I had a
Good.
big pillow. So, Charlene, one of the reasons that I wanted to talk to you tonight is because, like I told you, I get a lot of um, emails and messages when I go over these cases, and or when I share something, people talk to me about losing a loved one, either to overdoses or suicide or just natural cause or whatever the case may be. They've had some type of loss of a family member, a loved one of some sort, a friend, and I want to help them, but I haven't experienced that kind of stuff at a level that they have. I don't know what they're going through, and I don't know how they're feeling. So I know that you do. I know that you know what it's like. So I just want to start off. Maybe you can tell them your story about
Okay.
Colton, and
Okay.
yeah, go ahead and take it from here.
On August 28th, 2007, he was getting ready for his last day at work, and he was working for a man who he was had his own business laying hardwood floor. And Colton had been working for him. This was his third summer. And he looked at me, and interestingly enough, I didn't even think about this till just now, but my bed was in my bedroom exactly where it is right now. And I was sitting right here on this bed. And I looked out across kitty corner, across my hallway into his bedroom. And he was standing there in front of the internal wall. And I just looked at him and I just had the thought that I didn't want him to leave and that I wanted him to stay home that day so I could talk to him. And I was just sitting there watching him, and he just turned to me and said, "Why, Mom? What do you need?" Now let me say, Colton was 19 years, 6 months, and 1 day on the day of his accident and his passing. And I looked at him, and he looked so beautiful and so bright and so amazing. A couple hours later, I had to drive down the road and go help my daughter, who was a junior in high school, work with her schedule. It was only 5 days into the new school year, her junior year. And I went down, and right when I got to the school, and it takes about 15 minutes to drive to the high school from our home, his boss called, and he called me on my cell phone, and he said, "Hey, Colton never made it to work. Would you like me to drive up the road there that you live on? It's a mountain road." And he said, "Would you like me to look for him?" And I went, no, Colton's fine. I don't know where he is, but he's fine. I could not wrap my mind around, and I blew all that off. So I went in and I helped my daughter with her schedule, and I called Colton, and it went right to his voicemail. So I kept calling him, and it kept going to his voicemail. And I forgot to tell you, when I said to him, "Colton, stay home with me," and he said, "Why? What's up? What do you need?" And I said, "Why did I say that? Why did I ask him that?" And I said, "I don't know, Colton. I just want to talk to you today. I want to stay home and spend time with you." And he turned and looked at me from his bedroom facing that internal wall. And he said, "No, Mom, not today." He said, "Every day after this is my last day to drive down this road and go to work for Justin. And every day after this, I'll be working for the Lord, and I can't wait." And he left. And it turns out, after looking for him and calling around for, I don't know, probably 4 hours, my daughter that I'd helped with her schedule, she missed lunch because we were working in the counselor's office. So I drove her down to a little local restaurant, got her some lunch real quick. And the more time that went past, it was getting harder and harder to breathe. And the conversation that was going on in my head and in my heart was getting louder. I was trying to push it down, but my daughter was saying to me, "Mom, do you need me to help look for Colton?" And I said, "Oh, no, he's going to be fine." I'd called my oldest daughter, and who's married, and she had a little baby boy. And I said, "Hey, if you hear from Colton today, we're looking all over for him. Nobody's been able to get a hold of him. Let me know." So she was looking for him. I called my husband. My husband was looking for him. He left work and was driving home from Salt Lake City. He was looking for him, and I was telling my daughter, "No, he's going to be okay." And after getting her lunch, I was driving down Main Street and back up Schoolhouse Hill, they call it. And as I was making a left-hand turn and I was getting ready I was stopped there at the bottom of that hill. It's just a little, one lane each direction right there. And I was waiting for my turn, but because all these cars were coming this direction, and I counted 6 county sheriff's deputy cars coming past. And they all had their lights on, but none of them had their sirens going. As I watched them in my rear view mirror, I watched them turn up the road that leads to our little valley. And I sat there and I went, and I just had this sinking feeling inside of me. There were too many coincidences. And I just prayed and I said, "Dear God, please don't let those policemen be racing towards my boy." And then they went past and I drove up and dropped my daughter off. She only had about an hour or two left of school by now, and told her I'd see her at the end of the day. And then I drove away and started heading towards my house. And I got a phone call, and it was my oldest daughter. And my oldest daughter said, "Mom, go home." And I broke down and I started to cry, and I started to let that anxiety and that fear start. I started sharing it with someone finally. And I said, "Caitlin," I said, "I'm afraid to go home because I'm afraid he won't be there and I won't know what to do." And she said, "Mom, it's okay. Go home." I drove up that road, and as I got to a place where you go around a bend in the mountain, I saw one of those police vehicles going like this across the road, blocking both lanes of traffic. And I was on a mission now. I was trying to get home. And my daughter told me to get home. And I just had to get there because in my mind, that's where I was going to find Colton or hear from him. So this policeman wouldn't let me pass. And as I pulled closer to him, I saw my husband sitting in the passenger seat of his car, and my husband was crying and he wouldn't look at me. And I was just on that mission. I had to get around these people and get to my house. And that policeman rolled down the window and he said, "Pull off right there in that driveway." And that driveway was the last house in city limits. And I said, "No, I'm going home." And he said, "Pull off right there." And I said, "No, I'm going home. Get these cars out of the way." And I think already my spirit knew, Dusty, what I was going to be told, and I was just refusing to hear it. And so he said, "Pull off over there and I'll talk to you." So I was just mad, and I was using anger energetically as a higher energy. And so I pulled into that driveway and was like, "Okay, I'll jump through his hoops." And I sat there in my car, and he pulled in behind me in this driveway. And I sat there and I just waited, and he wouldn't come up to me. And my husband wasn't coming to me, and it made me mad. So then I got out of my car and I walked partway towards the cop vehicle, and I went, What is it?" And he just went like this. And I was like, what's that? He said, and I said, what are you talking about? And he went, Charlene, he's gone. And I remember just thinking, no, my kid is going to serve a full-time mission for God. He's protected. And there's no way this could happen to him. He's been through so many other things in his life. He didn't come this far just for it to end right here. And, you know, in piecing a lot of things together and looking back at things over the years, at first, initially, it was very painful to realize I had driven right past him to go help my daughter and hadn't even been aware. The man who cut the truck away from him, who was not a religious man at all, told me that he was about this far, about a foot away from Colton's face for an hour while he was cutting the truck away from him. And he just said, Charlene, and you know me, you know I don't do religion. He said, but God was in that truck. He said, your son had no marks or blood anywhere on him, except for one tiny little drop of blood in the shape of a tear, and there was a scratch right above on his forehead. Tiny little one, that's all. And he said, he looked so peaceful, like he had just shut his eyes and gone to sleep. He said there was everything but a smile on his face, but he looked so content. He said, but the entire time I was in that truck trying to get your boy out and take care of his body, God was in that truck. If I look back at who I was, I become confused and I become filled with sorrow and grief. And I've spent a lot of time grieving, and I still grieve now. This Saturday, the 27th of February, is Colton's 33rd birthday. And my kids and my grandkids will all come up with me and my husband, and we will celebrate Colton's birthday the best we can without him right here where we can see him, and include him as we continue to do in everything that we do. But I have to look ahead. And I think I've been able to do that with hope for the future because I have grieved in the past and I still allow myself to grieve now because grief is not an event. It never ends. It never stops. One question people have asked me over the years is, does it ever get easier? And that's probably the question I've had asked most often of me. And the answer is, it doesn't ever get easier. You become stronger. But I got to tell you all, and I got to tell your listeners, Colton's sitting right here next to me. And I know that because he told me he was, and people can say what they want to say. This is your 21st episode. You told me that, and you just barely found that out yesterday. Yep. Colton's football number was 21, and that was totally unknown and unplanned. Mm-hmm. Colton's football number was 21 in high school, and we see my family, we call it divine math. Colton's number pops up everywhere on hotel room doors and streets that we're going down, and it's just, I've never seen 21 so much in my whole life, and this is year 2021.
I want to show you something. I didn't tell you about this. Don't be mad at me because this is probably going to what gets you crying, but I reached out to your girls and they recorded videos about Colton. Caitlin's having a real hard time getting hers to me. That's who I was texting while you were talking. She's like, I can't get this to load. I sent her the link. I said, just come on live. And I sent her the link. So she might show up and she might not.
Dusty, thank you for reaching out and asking us to answer these questions. It was nice to have the chance to ponder on the questions that you asked and recall.
So could you hear her?
I can hear her, yes.
Okay, I forgot to preface this by, these are the questions I asked the girls that they could pick from any of them or answer all of them. I said, the first one was, how did Colton impact your life?
Okay,
The second one was, how will you honor his memory?
okay,
The third one was, what do you wish you would have said to Colton before his accident? And the fourth one is, do you think missing him will ever get any easier? I
okay,
think I already knew the answer to the last one, but the rest of them, I haven't watched these, by the way. I got
Okay.
about halfway into Sierra's, and then that's when I asked you if Colton had ADD, and so then I stopped it. So
okay,
Some of the memories that I have with my brother and the impact that he's had on my life. One of the first things I was able to recognize in a way that he impacted me was just, he had such a genuine way about him. He was very kind-hearted, easygoing, and loved to make people feel good. It was very difficult for people to be in his presence and not leave feeling like they had been paid attention to and that there was someone who cared who they were. And I realized that shortly after he passed, I had started to look for that in friendships and relationships, and I didn't find it very frequently, if at all, and it was very frustrating to me to feel like I was unable to fill that void, that gap that was missing now. But later, as time went on, I feel like instead of trying to find that in other people, I have tried harder to become that for others. I've tried to be the person that is kind-hearted, that is welcoming to anyone, and that after they've left being with me, they feel like they've been left in a better place for having spent time with me. Another impact that has been pretty difficult, I know each person in my family felt connected to Colton in a very specific and individual way, and like he was almost the anchor for our family in many ways. For me, that specific connection was both of us have ADD. Maybe that's not the best thing to share, but it really helped me to feel understood and heard. I knew that Colton was a person who could look at the situation and understand what I was thinking and the reason that I was thinking it, and having that connection missing has been really difficult. I don't feel that I'm often able to verbalize very well my thought process, and it can become frustrating for me. So he's had a large impact on my life. He continues to have an impact on my life daily and the choices I make and the person that I want to be, as well as that I want to raise my children to be. I've thought really hard about how I would want to honor him. I've thought about that question multiple times over the years and have changed the way I think I can do that best. But I think for me, one of the best ways to do that is to look for the people that are left out, that are often unnoticed or wouldn't be missed, and to reach out to them, to be kind to them, to make sure that they feel heard and cared for, and make them feel like they're important, because that's something that he was able to do for many people, especially those that were considered underdogs or maybe not as cool or popular or whatever. Another thing that I have tried to do to honor him that was very difficult in the beginning is to not ignore his imperfections and not romanticize the dead, if that makes sense. I feel like it's very easy after a loved one passes away to focus on specifically the good and try to forget mistakes that they made, or not talk about them or not bring them up, because that's not what you want to think about. You don't even want to think about that when they're alive. So when this person has gone, when they're dead, it's difficult to hear stories of stupid things they did or things they said that they shouldn't have when they were in their youth. And I've realized that those imperfections were part of what made Colton. And not only that, they're part of what made him human, which is how I'm connected to him. And not trying to hold him up to a standard of perfection that he did not attain in this life makes it easier for me to forgive myself as well and others around me for the mistakes I've made, because he is someone that I look up to so greatly and holds such importance in my life that if I allow myself to think on his mistakes from time to time or remember something stupid he did, then it allows me to say, you know what, that's a person who I love and hold very dear, and I've made mistakes too, or this person has made a mistake, and I'm able to overcome that and still see the great person that they are or that they're trying to be and feel that same love for them. One thing that I feel very fortunate about is that I don't have any regrets about my relationship with my brother. We were very close, and I've since felt his presence with me on multiple occasions, and I'm grateful to have had that. The morning that he passed away, I woke up to get ready for school and decided I didn't need to get ready because I was lazy. So I went to my mom's room. I was going to climb in bed with her and go back to sleep for a few minutes, and when I walked in the room, Colton was already in the bed. And I remember thinking to myself something about he was too big, or I don't know, that I just wish he'd get out of my way so I could go back to sleep. And that's one of the few regrets that I have, is just not climbing in that bed and laying down with my mom and my brother that day. And maybe having told him one more time that I loved him. I know that he knows that I do, but I would have liked to have had that be the last conversation that we had. A lot of people have asked over the years if it gets easier to deal with grief or to miss someone after they've passed away, and it could be different for many people, but my answer is no. It almost feels like it comes in waves. There are times where I feel much stronger, and there are certainly times where I feel like I've barely got my head above water. Many of the people in my immediate family struggle with PTSD after Colton's death, and that has been really difficult to deal with. I've learned some different coping mechanisms. Some are healthy, some may not be, but I've come to a point in my life where I Google movies ahead of time before I watch them so that I know if there's a scene or something that might upset me and trigger a panic attack, especially if I'm going to be in the company of someone else that's not a family member or may not understand my situation. It also means if I'm just watching TV, if a commercial comes on, I pay attention pretty quickly to the tone of the commercial, the music that's playing, and as soon as I see any sort of commercial where someone's in a vehicle and looks down at their phone, and I know it's going to portray a car crash, I don't watch it. And I try to plug my ears or distract myself because I know that it will cause a panic attack. So no, missing him has not gotten easier. There are ways I've learned to deal with it and overcome it. But no, it has never gotten easier. I'm grateful for the relationship that I have with him, and I'm certainly grateful for the way that my relationship with each of my family members has developed because of him and because of our desire to be the best people that we can be and see him again. But I miss him every day.
That's a picture I was talking about. I better get that off there.
Okay, in case you can't tell by looking at me, I've already filmed this a few times. But I'm going to try and make it through without sobbing or without having one of my dang dogs interrupt me. So, Number one, how did Colton impact your life? So I want to answer this in two different ways because I think he still does impact my life. So growing up, I was the youngest of 4 siblings, and we grew up far out of town, away from civilization, any grocery stores, movie theaters, any of that good stuff. So my siblings and I really were best friends, and we still are. But not only having Colton as my only brother, but my older brother, I think the biggest way he impacted me growing up was he never treated me like I was too dorky or too young to hang out with him or to be around he and his friends. Even throughout high school, as he started getting older and started being able to drive and bringing his friends and things up around our house, I never got that feeling from him that he was too cool or that he didn't want me around. And that was something that really impacted me growing up. And not only that, but he really taught me a lot, and he would take me, we would be driving home from somewhere, and just out of nowhere, he would decide that he wanted to teach me something. There was one time in particular where he taught me that if you're speeding and you see a cop, if you pull the e-brake instead of tapping on the gas, the cops won't see your brake lights. So sometimes the things he taught me maybe weren't always in line with the best of teachings, but he taught me so much, and he was never too cool or too old for me, I think was the biggest impact. And just his example of the way that he lived his life, and he really worked hard, and he did everything with all that he had, and he was never perfect by any means, and he didn't profess to be, or he didn't need people to think that he was. But he worked hard, and he had big goals and at everything that he did, and that's something that I've taken, I feel like, into my personal life as well. And I think also his example of nobody was ever, Colton was never too cool for anybody. There was never anybody that Colton wouldn't hang out with. He didn't hold judgments against people. And that really impacted me, and I feel like I've tried to emulate that as well. But he still impacts me now. He might even impact me more now that he's gone. I think about him all the time. I think about him in the decisions that I make. And I hope that the decisions that I make would make him proud and make my family proud. And I think there are so many things, especially about the LDS church, that a lot of people don't understand or might think are odd. There are people that I know that within the church or have left the church that have decided they don't agree with this or that. And I'm not professing to have all the answers, because I definitely don't. But I think the biggest impact Colton has had on me is I will do whatever it takes to get back to him and to be with my family forever. The second question is, how will you honor his memory? I try to honor Colton's memory in the way that I live my life. I try to do things that I think would make him proud, make my Heavenly Father proud of me as well. And I think I try to honor him by refusing to stop talking about him or refusing to share his stories. There are moments when people ask you, how many siblings do you have? It would obviously be easier for me to say, oh, I have 2 sisters, because then the uncomfortable conversation of, oh, well, I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, but he passed away. You can tell when you tell people that it makes other people uncomfortable, but I refuse to dishonor Colton in that way. No matter how uncomfortable it might make other people. and I share his stories whenever I can. I share them with people that know him, and I share them with the people that didn't know him or didn't have an opportunity to know him. And I think the biggest way that I try to honor Colton's memory is by loving the people around me. I have a very tight circle of people that I love, and as I continue to grow older, I think that circle kind of gets smaller and smaller. But for the people that are in that circle, I would do anything for those people. And I hope they know that. And I try to love those people with everything that I have. Because to do any less would be a dishonor to Colton and to the sacrifices that he's made for our family. The third question is, what do you wish you would have said to Colton before his accident? I think this question can be kind of tricky because if you're in that stage, or you're in those stages of grief, I hope people don't dwell on this question because it kind of implies that you have regrets. And I think it's important that people know that as long as that person knows that they were loved, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but you can't go back and change anything. So as long as that person knows that they were loved, I think that's enough. That's my personal opinion, but I think to dwell on this kind of a question could be detrimental and damaging to your growth or to passing through that grief. For me personally, I would not change anything about my interaction with Colton before his accident. He was getting ready to leave on his mission, and he and I decided to stay up late and watch a movie together. It was just the two of us. And I ended up falling asleep on his lap on the couch, and he was tickling me. And I was kind of drifting in and out, but it was such a sweet moment between the two of us. And I remember Colton telling me that he was sorry, and I thought that was odd. And he said, I'm sorry for all the times I was ever a jerk to you. And I was 14 at the time, but, you know, I guess in the back of my mind, I just thought, oh, he must just be trying to make amends before he leaves on his mission. But I understand now that his spirit knew what was going to happen. And I'm so grateful for that interaction that he and I had, and I think about it often. But for those people that didn't get that interaction or maybe feel like they didn't get to say what they wanted to say, I hope you know that that person knows that you love them. And I hope you don't dwell on these kinds of questions so much that it hurts your growth. Lastly, do you think missing him will ever get any easier? No, I don't. And I don't think I would want it to. I know that sounds kind of odd, but for me, if it did, I think that would mean that I had gotten comfortable. And I don't think that's something that Colton would ever want for me, is to just kind of sit back and let life happen to me. It's so interesting to me. It's been 13 years. It'll be 14 in August. And it's so interesting to me the way that grief can kind of just hit you out of nowhere. There are certain holidays and birthdays and events and things like that where you think about those people and you look around and you see the empty chairs, or your family keeps growing. And, you know, my sisters both have children now, and sometimes I sit and look at my nephews and I wonder what Colton's wife would have been like, and I wonder what Colton's kids would have looked like, and if they would have had his same cheesy grin. And in those moments, I can feel him with me. But even so, grief can hit you out of nowhere. It doesn't have to be at a party or a holiday. Or you can be driving and hear a song or just have a moment where you think about them and it hits you all over again. And there are moments where I've been married. It'll be 7 years in June, and my husband reminds me so much of my brother. And, you know, the way he has relationships with his 2 younger sisters, I envy that. But the way he treats his sisters makes me so proud. And it makes me think of Colton. So no, I don't think missing him will ever get any easier. But I wouldn't want it to, because to me that would mean maybe part of me had moved on from that, or was not honoring Colton in the way that I should and in the way that I was living my life.
All right.
Hi, my name's Caitlin. I am Colton's oldest sister. Dusty asked if we would share some of our experiences with grief in losing Colton, and in order to do that, I think if I can share a small little snapshot of our lives, that will help paint a better picture for you and how we dealt with that trauma and that grief. I am the oldest of 4. Colton was 2 years younger than me, and I have 2 sisters. And we grew up on a small rural farm in northern Utah. And we used to tease and say that we lived in the boondocks because we lived so far away. The bus ride was a 45-minute bus ride to school, or it was a 20-minute drive to town to get gas. My dad drove an hour and a half to work every day, and he would usually stop at the grocery store on his way home because any big markets or big stores were about a 45-minute drive from our home. So we grew up kind of off the beaten path on a dirt road, and we didn't have neighbors and kids our age close around us. So we grew up being each other's best friends. There wasn't anybody else. I can honestly say that my siblings were my very best friends growing up. And Colton being 2 years younger than me, the majority of my memories from my childhood and into high school, he is in all of them. We drove to school together every day. He was on the high school track team with me. I remember watching him wrestle, and our lives revolved around supporting each other in basically everything that we did. He was at my track meets. I was at his wrestling tournaments. He came to my basketball games. We just did everything as a family. So we were super close, and summers where we lived were amazing. But if we didn't get along, it was a long summer because that's who we had every day to be with. And we spent our summers fishing and riding 4-wheelers and doing everything that you can imagine when you live on a farm together. So, Colton being the only boy probably shaped a lot of who I am today. I would very much consider myself a tomboy, and having him as the next closest sibling, he made me tough. I was his wrestling partner, his practice dummy at home, and we did everything together, and he was rambunctious. We spent a lot of time just being outside. We did everything outside, and he was such a happy-go-lucky person. Colton was happy no matter where he was or who he was with, and he could make anyone feel like they were the most important person. He had friends that came and talked to us at his funeral, at the viewing, and every single one of them had at some point felt like they were Colton's best friend. And I was lucky enough to be that. I got to do everything with my brother, and he championed the underdog. He wanted the best for everyone. He was competitive, but when it came to supporting or cheering on and lifting others up, my brother was the best that there ever was. And he changed my life. He made me stronger and a better person. And he made me, he gave me the confidence to believe in myself. And he pushed me to be better, and he made me realize how strong I was. And he made me a better mom. I now have 4 boys, and being able to be Colton's sister and now raise 4 boys that remind me so much of him, he gave me the opportunity to realize how short life is and that we don't have promises of tomorrow. And so I take each day, I try to take each day one step at a time, and I won't let my kids leave the house for school or for anything else without telling them I love them. And he made me realize that life is too important to hold grudges or be angry or to wish for better. Today is perfect the way that it is, and we're exactly where we're meant to be. And I'm so grateful for Colton and the way that he did impact my life. We have made it a point to keep his name alive. One of my sons and my sister has named her son. They both have been named after Colton, and we keep his name alive in sharing his memories. He was such a light to people, and I often share stories with my boys and tell them, you know, when they remind me of him, things that they do or some characteristics or stories of when he used to get in trouble and they've done something similar. We just keep talking about him because I know he is still here, and I know he is here watching over my kids and I, and we still celebrate his birthday every year. We celebrate what we call his heaven day, the day that he left, and we try to do service on that day in memory of him. And there were so many people that were influenced by Colton. I know there are people all over that are helping to keep his name alive and remember him. And I'll never forget the week that he left. He was supposed to be leaving for an LDS mission. So in a way, we were mentally preparing to say goodbye for 2 years. And I think that was a blessing because it caused each of us to take our time with him a little more seriously, or to hold it a little more sacred. And Colton made it a point to spend time with each of us, even if it was just a split moment. The week before he died, he came and just stopped by my house, and I was home cleaning with my little 8 or 9 month old baby boy, and he stopped by and he did my dishes and he played with my baby and just sat and talked to me about nothing important, just talked and gave me a hug. And that's just who Colton was. He knew what you needed when you needed it. And I think that having those memories just hours before he left changed everything for me, because I can't imagine what it would have been like to lose him and feel like I had had things left unsaid. I felt like he and I had been able to talk, and our family was already so close. We hug and kiss goodbye and hello, and goodbyes take 15 minutes because you can't just leave. So I don't know that there's anything different that I would do or say to him. Of course, you always wish for more, for longer, but I don't know. I don't think I would have said anything different. I think because our family always said, I love you before we walked out the door, I knew that Colton knew that I loved him, and I knew that he loved me. So that's also something that's impacted my life. I don't let, even if you are a friend that comes to our house to visit, I won't let you leave without a hug. And I love you, because sometimes that's it. And I just want that person to know when they leave my house, if that's the last time they see me, that that's how I feel about them. One of the hardest questions that Dusty asked was if missing him ever gets any easier. And it never ever gets easier. That pain, that person that's missing from Christmas and Thanksgiving and Easter and all of the times you get together with your family and they're not there, and you just wonder what would it be like. That never gets any easier. But you slowly become strong enough to hold the weight of that burden. And I look at each one of my boys and I watch as they celebrate birthdays or milestones, and I watch who they're becoming, and it makes me miss him, and it makes me wonder what it would be like and what he would be doing and how he would interact with my kids and what his life would be like in his family. And that never gets easier, but I know that he has the opportunity to be my son's guardian angel, and I know that he is mine, and he watches over our family, and that makes missing him a lot easier, or makes it less painful. Easier is not a good word. It makes it less painful. And I have discovered over the last decade that grief changes, and some days it's hard. Some days are a little bit easier. Some moments are hard, and it can come out of nowhere. You can be on vacation and see something that will remind you of the person, and you experience the grief all over again. It doesn't ever go away. But it makes you a better person. And I hope that in trying to find goodness in each day, and in not letting friends or family leave without telling them how much I love them, I hope that that is how I am honoring and remembering Colton. And I think that is the biggest takeaway from grief, is it can make our hearts better or it can make them bitter. And it doesn't get easier, but we all become a little bit stronger minute by minute, day by day, to be able to hold that grief so that we can help others when they experience grief too.
So what'd you think of all those?
What a gift you just gave me. I mean, and it's Colton's birthday this Saturday, not mine. Although mine will be just 10 days after that, or 11 days. But I mean, I listened to the things that they were all saying, and I felt all their different, I felt their hearts, and I felt what they've learned is interconnected. And I just listened to them and I thought to myself, the three of them would not be like that without their great loss. That has made them who they are. Thank you for this opportunity.
Absolutely.
And thank you for being who you are. I love you so much. And I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to honor Colton this way for his 33rd birthday this weekend. And thank you for the gift of allowing me to see Colton's three sisters through his eyes, because I just did. And what beautiful women they are. They astound me.